are up here today.
That's right.
To share this with us.
The question is, I think, which we'll ask Senator McGuire to address, given where we are in the bill and what the actual bill says, these are large issues that cross a whole host of discussions that we've had. A lot of folks have had a lot of amendments. I'll give it to you too. And the question is, does it achieve those deliverables, and are there better ways to achieve it that balances out the business interests for California companies and the other? And two, the biggest issue for me, quite frankly, comes from the author in our discussions when he used to serve as mayor of Healdsburg. Healdsburg, is that pronounced correct, sir? Healdsburg. Where they have 75 of these I'd never heard of the other company, the one that does the classified types. I'd never heard of them before, but Airbnb had 75 properties and 375 properties for the other guys. Well, there was a Supreme Court case or court case in San Francisco that says you can't tax those because they're just an advertising company. Or if the LA Times decides to do a classified, does that apply? This is a gigantically important issue that the author has done a magnificent job. He's been doing it when he's a supervisor and the like. The question is, what's the proper solution, and do we have time? We've got a bunch of amendments, and how do we achieve it in a most effective way? Because I do completely agree with the folks that were testifying in favor. We want to get every nickel. So in Healdsburg, you're going to, under this bill, you're going to get 75 beds that you're going to miss the 375 and the other ones that could otherwise be represented. You want to get them all, and how do you do that is the question. And we have not come to a conclusion as to how that works. So you're completely right. The question is, what's the solution to get to that very, very important public policy? Okay, Senator Hernandez.
Comments. A question may come out of it. So first of all, I do appreciate the fact that we need to collect the TOT. I mean, it's extremely important. And I understand that the markets and the business models are changing. We don't have a lot of the brick and mortar hotels that, register within cities, et cetera. But here has been my biggest frustration today and leading up to today, and hearing the opposition, hearing and the support, et cetera, and then seeing amendments from, I think it's League of Cities, and then apparently there's going to be amendments from the realtors. And actually, just reading the amendments from the League of Cities, there's a couple of them here I really like, And what I absolutely hate is doing policy and writing law in committees, and so that's just another frustration as well. So with regard to the privacy, and I asked a question to Airbnb with regard to the user data, the taxpayer data, et cetera, and the home business address, the night stays, and the room rates. And I don't have a problem with that. And I don't have a problem with that because it's not giving personal data for information of an individual that's staying there. So this gentleman here just made a very eloquent plea to oppose, but yet he did everything right and is doing everything right by going to the city of Los Angeles, filling out all the information, paying the TOT tax, but yet the city of Los Angeles has that exact same information that the author is trying to get as well. So I don't have a problem with that personal information as well. So here's my concern, and I still am not 100% sure where the votes are yet because it seemed like there's a lot of division. And I still think there's a lot of work in progress in this particular bill. So I'm going to ask the author, if this bill were to get out of this committee, because my concern about it not getting out today, that we're going to need rule waivers, we won't running out of time, getting other committee hearings. Would you be totally committed to resolving these problems before it gets off the floor? Some of these outstanding issues before it moves off the floor. Would you be totally committed if we were to move it out of this committee? Can I get that?
I mean, if they don't reach agreement, they should.
And if you don't reach any agreement, so I'm talking to you, and there's no agreement, then you're willing not to move the bill off the floor.
An agreement with, you're going to have to work.
And also work with the chair's staff, and total agreement. And if you're willing to do that, then I'd be willing to support the bill today.
Can I just, before you answer that, because I got to tell you something. I mean, I look at this thing, and in normal instances, this is not going to appropriations. It goes directly to the floor. We are all deep believers in the legislative process. We care deeply about it. This is a very important issue that has a lot of elements to it that are not, I have been talking to the author for more than a month. I don't have a single amendment that we talked about. Well, there was one amendment that I didn't really understand how it worked in 29th of April in terms of where we're going, and we took out the insurance provisions because I thought that was going to complicate things, so that's accurate. But from my point of view, what's the purpose of a committee process? We're now going to go and say, we're going to tell the public that we're going to take and move something out of a committee, we're going to pass it to the ozone, someplace between here and the floor. We're going to have private discussions to figure out what it looks like, and then we're going to put it on the floor for a vote, and it'll go to the other house. What I'd like to do, given the circumstances, I started looking through the amendments. We have an amendment today that says it might require re-referral. We have, Senator Bell had proposed some discussions on amendments that were rejected by the author. I'm told and have not heard about this company, VRBO HomeAway, has proposed amendments. We know the realtors have talked about amendments, and this is not some small little thing to discuss. And so, in my judgment, we've got different models. The core message is there. We all know that we can do this and figure it out through the committee process and find vehicles and do what we have to do to make it work. And so just as you answer that, and I had shared this exact, just so everyone knows in the committee, I shared this exact conversation. It's the reason why I was late this morning with the author, and we've had I don't know how many meetings and dinners and breakfasts to discuss this. But I just think that it's just between the delta between what we actually have to do and get it done should be done at a committee process level. So certainly you can try to answer the questions, but I just want to share that with you in terms of what's going to be my recommendation, and at least how I intend to vote with respect to this measure.
Thank you so much. No, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I want to say thank you to the chair and to staff. So we went through the process to be able to draft. We have been meeting with individual interested parties for several months now. We went through the transportation and housing process, and I want to say thank you to Chair Bell for all the work that he put into this. He put in a lot. The consultants put in a lot of time. We got out of that committee without any amendments. So then on Monday, we did not have any formal amendments coming from transportation and housing, but we did receive some items from the chair here earlier this week. More than willing to discuss. The issue is on data. Let's talk about realtors and let's talk about League of Cities. So League of Cities, we started working with the League of Cities 3 months ago. The League of Cities has a very robust process. So what happened is that the League of Cities went to their policy committee. It then had to go to their convention. It then had to go to their board of directors. Our legislative director then, their legislative director then brought forward amendments after it went through their very long process. And we all know this, that it takes time to be able to work through individual processes. Regarding realtors, we started discussion with realtors last week. And here's the issue with realtors, it's the bottom line. Per their license with the state of California, they have to pay their tax. So I will share with you in the county of Sonoma, you have realtors that are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in tourist tax, and then you have online platforms that aren't paying any. So people will then go to the online platform because they can pay 9% less per day for the entire week. So what the amendment, and I'll paraphrase here, is that it excludes realtors because realtors already by law have to pay their tax. So, that's the piece. I'm more than committed to be able to see this process through. We have met with Airbnb. We've met with Representatives John Ross. Yes, sir. We've actually met with John Ross, who represents Airbnb here in Sacramento. Our staff team has met with Airbnb. We have met, appreciate all the work by VRBO. Mr. Fromer was in the office yesterday talking about issues and throwing out some specific language, which, by the way, we said didn't work because it didn't collect data. So I understand that there is still going to be some additional needs, and I'm going to go to what Senator Hernandez has said. I'm absolutely committed to be able to continue these discussions. But I just want to say, and just on some of the notes here, is that the reason why we're discussing data is because in Sonoma County, we've asked for data through our county counsel's office. Airbnb never responded. Never responded.
So you kind of responded to my question, and so my question is, to get my vote today, would you be willing to resolve the outstanding issues with the chair on the floor before it moves out of the House?
Absolutely. I'm just going to say this, and this is just in regards to data.
No, I'm not talking about, because what I don't want to do, I don't want to write law here right now.
No, I don't either, and that's why, frankly, not want to get into. I'm committed. Thank you. Can I just throw out a few other items relating to?
A lot of stuff was raised, certainly respond.
So a few items in regards to the Franchise Tax Board. None of this information does go to the Franchise Tax Board. Bed tax is the only local tax that state feds don't take a portion of. So this is all generated through the local folks. So none of this actually goes through the Franchise Tax Board. 1099-K forms are required by the federal government as an independent contractor, as the former tax collector, now senator, knows. So it all goes to local communities. As far as putting Airbnb out in communities, out of business in communities where they already have ordinances, well, they're not supposed to be operating if the local law says they can't operate. So I know that there was a discussion brought up by representatives saying that they're going to be put out of business, but they're not supposed to be operating in that community because of the local law. Airbnb already mandates that they are going to turn over information plus guest information. So that's right now on terms of service, that if it is based off of local law, they may have to turn it over. I want to remind, in the last hearing, folks were concerned that online vacation rental platforms would be the planning police. This bill intentionally focused enforcement on the side of the locals, because we should not have a private business getting involved in local jurisdiction. And that's why you see the California State Association of Counties, as well as League of Cities, as the chair and Mr. Hernandez had mentioned, wanting to be able to see some amendments. The LA tax form, it requires more information than what is being required in this legislation. So if you are a law-abiding taxpayer in the city of Los Angeles, you have to give the city of LA more information right now than what this bill currently would require. And I want to say thank you. You're absolutely right. There are thousands of folks who pay their bed tax and across the state, but the majority, frankly, don't. And I know that there are some issues with concern about privacy. We do have Guy Fusion here from Sacramento County Tax Collector who would be happy to be able to comment on privacy. But again, Mr. Hernandez, I want to reassure you that we are absolutely committed to be able to work with the chair as well as this committee to be able to resolve the issues before they come to the floor.
Senator Laura.
Thank you. Thank you. I also, share the same concerns with Senator Hernandez. I think there's a lot to be worked out here.
Yep.
And I think, out of respect to our chair, more conversations have to happen. I think I understand the complexities of what we're trying to achieve here, but I also want to give you the opportunity to continue to work on this issue, because once we miss this deadline, then we might not get rule waivers. It involves a whole different process. And I want to give you I think the issue merits further dialogue. But the chairman, his staff have to be involved in this. And I think before we even have a discussion on the floor on this bill, this needs to get worked out somehow. And to the certainty that our chairman has to be able to continue to work on this issue, I think it'll make me feel comfortable supporting this at this time, but we need to get you to negotiate and be able to cut a deal. I mean, that's the art of this, and being able to work with our chairman is also going to be important. As if this bill moves along, I'm willing to give you that today, and of course reserve my right on the floor. But I think this issue merits further discussion. It can't end here, and I think I'm willing to give you that here today, but with the reassurance that you're going to continue to work with our chair and staff.
And Mr. Lara, thank you so much, and you have my commitment. We actually put the hearing off from last week to this week to be able to allow for additional discussion as well. And my word to you is that we are going to continue working, and I've said this to Mr. Hertzberg this morning, is that my commitment is to continue to working with the chair, all of you on this issue. That's why we actually put this hearing off from the 6th to the 13th to continue to have the discussion. I'm committed to it, and I'm grateful to even have the ability to have this discussion on this really important issue. So you have my word.
You know, if I can just add a thought to there, because you're absolutely very gracious, and it's absolutely true, and you did put the hearing off. You know, but this is a place of custom and practice and tradition. And my only thought was, there's been no changes because of that. I looked at an option which I wasn't sure was accurate, but we already have, as I suggested, in the context of the business world, business license world, we have a silver platter doctrine, where you don't create this process whereby outside parties have to turn over stuff. This opens a much bigger Pandora's box, right? We looked at ways that if you're going to collect, I mean, the compelling message to me of the folks that are here is that there's a bunch of money that's available to provide important public services, and lots of these folks impact the public in ways that we need those services from local jurisdictions. And this bill, arguably because one of the changes may include the issue of classified ads, the other business model, I personally don't think it accomplishes it. We define hosting platforms as a marketplace for creating primary purpose of facilitating the rental residential units. And so my concern here is that we've been talking about this for months now. We have literally, other than taking out the insurance because I was afraid it was going to complicate it too much, and one amendment that I don't think even came close, and if it's my fault, I apologize. We have not had the committee analyze your privacy amendments. My staff tells me that that requires re-referrals. This is not a hard problem if we can reach an agreement through the committee and respect the process, not just with the chair, but with every other member of this committee, is what's the purpose of policy committees. And we should all be. Every member of this body should be a part of that, and then we can find a vehicle to get this going and make sure that this transportation occupancy tax is collected. But I look at this thing with the number of issues. There's amendments that I didn't even know about, didn't even hear about. But so far, I don't have any changes. I got nothing, and so now I'm supposed to negotiate with you in the ether, not as chairman of the committee, but as interpersonal relationships, because we all commit to something, but we've been committing to this and nothing's changed. So, you look, at the end of the day, it's okay if you guys want to negotiate, make that position, that's fine. But I thought about this a lot, and I spent a lot of time this morning talking to you about this, and I really am firm about the idea that the committees have to mean something. So at the end, you know, if it ultimately goes to the floor, it does. But what's the purpose of the process then? Well, Senator Laura.
Can we not call the bill, can't you call it back when, you know, during the process? When,
no, we'll have to do a gut and amend. But the question is the law, right? We'll have to move a vehicle somewhere along the process, certainly not unheard of in this legislative branch, whether it's in the other house or here. We'll do the homework, and then with the consent of bringing in all the committee, we'll decide on it. I don't want that responsibility. I sat and tried to help the process with the author. As I said, I put more time in this measure than all other measures combined by orders of magnitude. We'll consult with everybody here, and then we'll find something. I will commit to do it.
I was thinking in terms of, you know, if the will of the committee is to let this bill move forward, that at a later date we can call it back in during the process to further have the dialogue. I don't know if we could do it before the floor vote. I mean, I don't know.
Senator Bell.
Just, you know, the discussion in the Housing and Transportation Committee. I think at the end of the discussion, I kind of summed up the views of people, and I want to reflect them to the members in this committee. Our jurisdiction wasn't necessarily the tax collection area, okay? That's our jurisdiction was the land use area. And I think to sum it up, there was an aversion to having a platform be involved in enforcing land use issues to collect taxes. So with that, I hope that any changes in the bill or amendments reflect that specific issue. That there was an aversion to that, okay? There just wasn't a feeling that that was the right way to go. And we left the tax issue to this committee. Of course, this is the committee that deals with taxes and local government and things like that. So we had kind of maybe a limited area of jurisdiction, which was land use, okay? But there was an aversion to land use having the platform service land use regulation. I know the land use regulation issues well because I've served on the planning commission in San Jose. 4.5 years I chaired the commission. I'm a planner, that's my background. And I served on the council for 14 years and the county supervisor for 12 years. So I'm pretty familiar with all this stuff, okay, with the mayor. And I think we don't want, it seems like you want to catch things as early as possible. If somebody's going to make a mistake on their land use, you know, or do something they're not supposed to do, you want to catch it early rather than wait till they get into it and start doing it and have to spend taxpayers' money to send a code enforcement guy out to tell the person that they're not supposed to do it, okay? We're talking common sense here. So the way to do that is to catch them when they start their business.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I'm just, you know.
Anything further?
I mean, I'm being real practical about it, okay? So you catch them when they start their business, when they first start their business, and all the Airbnb or anybody else has to do is say, do you have a business license?
Okay.
I mean, that's where you start. And that's, none of these amendments deal with that.
Well, that's what your amendments dealt with.
Yeah, that's what we tried to do.
Right.
So our amendments were reflected, and that needs to be part of, you know,
They
my
were
opinion,
rejected.
part of the easy way of preventing the city government having to hire 18 zillion code enforcement officers and raise taxes and to fund all that. I mean, you know, I'm looking at it from a standpoint of if I'm in the local government, I want to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah, it's just easier for me and my judgment members to, as a committee
that's
to deal with this.
sort of what we
And, you know, I mean, because every one of these amendments are rejected. The other folks from home, whatever, every one of these, I've got lists of them that I've been trying to collect that have been floating around.
Work with.
No, I just don't want to do anything. Okay, anything further in your close, sir?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Just a few other clarifications. I want to say it again. I am committed, as I have always been, and frankly, as we have been working together for the past several months on this issue. I'm committed in good faith to be able to work with all sides. And I think that is absolutely important to be able to drive good legislation and, frankly, policy that will work for all involved. A partner with our cities and counties as well as local business. Relating to issues that we've been discussing, and I cannot stress enough how grateful I am to the chair for all of his work on this. We have had breakfasts and dinners and meetings a few times a week for the last month and a half, and I'm grateful for that. We've talked about issues related to the silver platter doctrine and potentially going to the FTB, but focusing more on local and making sure that it's not a fiscal approach and making sure that we keep the local control, because I think that is what's most important with this bill. And again, in good faith, I would be grateful to continue this discussion with all of you, in particular with the chair, as this would move forward to the floor, and would be grateful to be able to have your support.
And just out of curiosity, does the rules, I mean, what's happening is we're form over substance. We're moving a bill versus a policy, but the policy hasn't been decided because the notion is that the measure will face deadlines. So it's going to face a deadline to move off the floor as of when? What is that date? So we have to negotiate if this idea, which I object to, goes forward, we still are under a timeline, and we're going to face the same exact thing, because if we can't reach an agreement, and so far we haven't had a single of these amendments adopted, well, then what's going to happen is we're then going to go and then have to find a vehicle, because the issue is an important one, and as a legislature we need to address it. So the question is, what does that look like?
My understanding is the author has agreed that he would not move the bill off the floor unless there's an agreement with the chair and the opponents.
I think that the deadline's June 5th.
June 5th?
June 5th.
Thank
So
you.
if there's no agreement, it's not moving off the floor.
We're going to need to be able to work hard. Now,
Is that a
That's what he committed to me for my vote.
I'm committed
You
to
did?
that,
Is that-
and want your participation.
No, I know, but what I'm trying to do is, I'm going to be a little precise here,
for my
what
vote.
what
Committed.
Senator Hernandez said,
Committed.
not just his vote, but it won't move off the floor unless we have an agreement.
Committed, and I just want to make sure that the other side is also committed.
What does that mean? Just the answer to the question is yes or no.
No, I'm committed.
All right.
Absolutely committed.
Well, it's between us.
Yes.
I don't care about the other side.
Okay. Still don't want to move it out of committee, but that's okay.
With
All right,
that understanding, I move the bill.
bill's been moved. Anything further, sir?
I'm grateful for your time and discussion, and again, Mr. Chair, for all of your hard work, as well as this committee as well, and do appreciate Mr. Bell as Chair of Transportation and Housing as well. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Secretary, please call the roll.
Hertzberg? Wynn? No. Wynn, no. Bell? Aye. Bell, aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Laura? Aye. Laura, aye. Morlock? No. Morlock, no. Pavley? Aye. Pavley, aye. 4-2.
Was it?
4-2.
4-2, measures out. Okay, thank you very much. Great.